Impact. Real human interest stories ranging from the ordinary to the truly extraordinary.
Hello, this is Fatima Husain, and you're listening to Impact, the program which introduces you to extraordinary human interest stories from around Canada. Today, we bring you the story of Felix, a Ghanaian who's breaking racial and cultural barriers in Toronto through his love for Afrobeat. His accolades are many, and so are his struggles. But Felix is determined to bring a change, mainly through his love for music. In this episode, Felix shares what it was like back home in Ghana, immigrating to Canada, his love for music, and trying to find what he calls his African dream here in Canada.
SlimFlex I get so with P on the beats, yeah. I saw this fine lady, hey.
My name is Felix Appiah Korang, also known as SlimFlex, Afrobeat artist. Come from Ghana originally, born in Accra, and then migrated to Canada in the year 2000. And been here ever since, struggling and trying to find that African dream.
Pretty girl, I'm loving your style when you wind up for me. My girl, just take it slow. Girl, take it slow. Girl, I love it.
There's a lot of struggles, especially coming from where I come from, and that is to say coming from Africa. It's like I feel we don't get the same platforms as other, because we usually known as a third world country. So there's a lot of incentives and stuff that we need as people to grow that are not necessarily provided. Coming up here, it's something you would expect that as you come here it would change, and I wouldn't say it didn't change, but it didn't change the way I thought it would have changed, because the struggle is pretty much the same. You're still part of a minority group, so you're still basically gonna face the same discriminations that other minority groups face. Family struggles are things that are bound to happen in life. It's usually how it's solved that like really matters. And with me, like, my struggles really started because I kind of didn't grow up with my two parents in the house, basically. So I had to be raised by basically my grandmom for most of my life. I thought that was my mom, basically, right? So you now being bounced from one family to the other, it's like okay, today you're with this auntie, the next day you're with this uncle, the next day you're living with this family person. So you're not really getting a straightforward path to life. Your life is being served to you in shorts, and that alone affects your development as a young person coming up. Also, coming up here, even with my dad, when I decided to actually do music, you know, that fatherly pressure was there, because he brought me to Canada to maybe become a medical doctor or something, and then I choose to do music. So if that's what I choose, then he ain't gonna have my support, and that also stunts your growth as a young artist trying to come up.
You gotta show me how you do that.
Music has been a part of my family. You know, it was until recent, one of my aunties told me my mom, like I said, I never got a chance to live with my mom, and my whole life, I think I saw my mom 3 times in my whole life. I think the 3rd time I saw my mom was when she was gonna get buried. Yeah, that was the 3rd time that I saw my mom. Smile, make I take your photo. Cause when you smile, girl, I swear you they give me the mojo. I go be cameraman anytime that you want to. Cause when you pose, girl, I swear you they blow up my mind, eh. Girl, only you, girl, only you. Only you, girl, not you. Hey, only you, girl, only you. Only you, girl, not you. Yeah. I never really had that mother being in the mix for me. But then I was told she was always a music person. She was always singing when she was young, to the time where she grew. She was singing at churches and stuff. And then it takes me back to me being young too, because I remember in my grandmom's church back in Ghana, I was singing, and I was very young at that time. And most of the people will ask my grandmom, oh, your grandson could actually sing. So I always grew up with that in me, that okay, yeah, I mean, I like to sing. It was actually when I actually went to the boarding house got a taste of other forms of music other than Christian music. I got introduced to dancehall, I got introduced to rock and roll, I got introduced to jazz, a whole lot of variety of music, and that is where I think the whole inspiration of I would like to be like Michael Jackson one day, I like to be like this someday if I get a chance. I think that's where the passion came in. And then when I moved to Canada, I said, okay, if the opportunity is there, let me see how best I can move it.
You be my desire. For your love I no go retire.
I mean, talking about shift from Ghana to Canada, it's a big shift, but somewhat not, because I kind of also had a little education back home, so I could read and write pretty much. So that kind of helped that part of my aspect coming to Canada. But as to getting into the whole Canadian livity or the Canadian life, to see how Canadians behave, how I'm supposed to act as a Canadian and or to be with Canadians and all of that wasn't easy, because first of all, coming from Africa, the accent, number one, is a problem. When I first came in my first ESL class and they had the word hippopotamus written on the board, but from where I come from, we don't call it hippopotamus. You know what I'm saying? We say hippopotamus. So I now end up saying hippopotamus, and the teacher was looking at me like, huh? Then I said it again and she's looking at me like, I mean what is on the board, and the whole class went off. So it was I just had to explain myself over and over and say, yeah, like to the point where I actually had to say water elephant. It was embarrassing, because at the end of the day, school kids are gonna laugh at you in circumstances like that. So that was a big problem. But even though I could speak and write it, the accent was a big problem that kind of made me a bit skeptical, especially when it came to expressing myself in public or talking in public.
As we come in, we get set the whole place ready. Free man. Kuzo mantan kuzo kuwa kuzo kunji
First of all, you coming from Africa, and African music at that time wasn't that popular. Afrobeat wasn't popular anywhere in Canada when I came, let's say 18 years ago. As much as I had the desire to do it, even most of my friends who were actually my friends also from Ghana would actually tell me that, bro, this thing is not going nowhere. If you want to do it, you got to be doing songs like Drake's, you got to be doing songs like those kind of people if you want to be out there. But if you want to stick to the African thing, then I mean, that's not the place for you. It's not going to work. To some effect, it nearly came to that level. But like I said, things started opening because we challenged ourselves to project this African agenda of African culture, African music, the awareness of the African person in North America to the forefront. And I'm glad that I played, or I'm still playing a role in trying to get that African message out there that, hey, we also part of the Canadian force, and so our culture and our music should be consumed and accepted as it is.
Come closer, come wind up on this fine bubble. Come wind up on this fine bubble.
I'm feeling your body. When you dey walk out the road, my girl, you dey cause a tsunami. They have to bring the whole army. Get your body sweet like Pami. You got the sticky like Bami.
Kuzo mantan kuzo kuwa kuzo kunji kuzo
I went to Tisseltown Collegiate. I came here, like I said, from 2000s. And at that time, even I thought like, Africans were already all over the place. And at that time, we were doing things already. I never lived in a tree. Never ever in my life lived in a tree. As bad as it might have been, I was always good. I had a chance to go to school. So for someone who couldn't even pass calculus, not even calculus, grade 10 at that time, the advanced math, someone that couldn't pass that comes to you and tells you that, oh, so I heard African live on trees. First, it didn't hit me, but it was later on. I'm like, so what? Like, people really have that mentality? Like, who could live on trees? It's offensive, but this is what they know. This is what they've been told from when they were young, that these people, this is what they are. So when she's growing up, she's expecting to see an African with bushy face, looking like, excuse me to say, a gorilla, coming from the bush. That is how African is supposed to look. But she's seen me. I wasn't that type, cleaned up like I look. I'm proud of my skin. I'm proud of how I look. I'm proud of my curly hair that I didn't have to use nothing for. So I just shook it off. I told my dad about it. He was offended. He wanted to actually come to the school and talk to my principal. But I'm that kid too that don't want that. I don't want that to have that stigma on me that I couldn't fight my battles and I have to get people in it. So I tried as much as, because my dad was very angry that night. That very night, if school was open, I know he would have said, let's go to the school.
Ooh yeah, nah. Ooh yeah, nah. Hustling every day on the street so that we can make ends meet. Working 9 to 5 every day, but yes, we still can't reach. But Jaja not gonna make we suffer, just hold on to your grind. No say you gon' soon get better, after darkness comes the light. Yo, never give up. Never give up. We going higher and higher. Never will give up. It doesn't matter what they do, doesn't matter what they say, we are still gonna stay on top. Hear me now, higher and higher. Never will give up. It doesn't matter what they do, doesn't matter what they say, we are still gonna stay on top. Hear me now. Rain, 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 rain.
At the end of the day, it's not what they said that determines what an Africa person is. Because for some of them that have had a chance to go to Africa, when you go there and you see the houses that we put up, you see the architecture, you see the cars that are being used down there, it's not what they try to show on World Vision. I'm not trying to say everywhere in Africa is good. I'm not saying there's peace everywhere. The same way in Canada. Canada is a top world or top class country, right? But we still have people that live in poverty down here, right? India has so much technicians, so much elite people, but there are people in India that are still facing poverty. You go to Russia, there are people. Go to the States. Go to the United States. There are more people living in poverty than even in Canada, in the States.
Doesn't matter what they do, doesn't matter what they say, we are still gonna stay on top. Hear me now, higher and higher. Never will give up. It doesn't matter what they do, doesn't matter what they say, we are still gonna stay on top. Hear me now.
The system it's not favoring us, and they're not making it easier. So it's like, if you don't really spring out of your zone and feel, okay, I'm an artist, yeah, I could get 2 shows, so I'm okay. At the end of the day, 2 shows won't do it. 2 years to come. So that's why sometimes we try to fight. We try to put up that fight that, hey, there are some people here too. We also need that help too. And what are the helps we need? Nobody's asking for a handout. I'm putting myself together with my management. They're spending tons of money to put me out there so we can make something out. This is what God gave me. This is my gift. I can't let the gift go to waste. I got to put it to work, right? So if there's the assistance, like people that go to these places, why can't they advocate for people like, let's say, independent record labels, as they call them, indie labels? There's so many young artists that are on indie labels, but because the indie label doesn't really have much money, it's hard to project them. But yet when they're cutting the big taxes, they don't cut for the indie label. They cut for the corporate, the people that don't need the money already. So why can't we have a system like, okay, now if you are, let's say, a young entrepreneur and you're trying to start something like a music label, we, as long as you're Canadian and you're going by the rules, because they give a lot of money, especially Ontario Art Council, they get a lot of money, but the money don't come to the right people. Excuse me to say. So why can't the government be like, or let's say, like, okay, so now you're a young entrepreneur, you're helping other young talents develop. So let's say if your budget for the year was, say, 100,000, we the government gonna meet you maybe 40%. They're not asking for much. We come help you 40%, because if you go to other nations, the creative arts, like, people are getting funds and stuff for that. All they do is say, oh, go and apply for grants, but they already know who they're gonna give the grants to. They know which house is gonna get the grant. So why are you telling me to apply for something, pay money to apply for something that I'm not gonna get? Yes, I have self-finance in the past. It's not easy. Like I told you earlier on, we're still struggling. Like there's still chances that we hoping to get like grants and whatever, we apply and stuff, and sometimes they don't find you. Like for instance, I submitted my album to the world music category at Junos, but when you look at it, the people that they nominate for Junos and stuff, it's basically people that are not of African descent, and it's world music. You're talking about world music and you're still giving it to a jazz artist. That is not right, because jazz have their category. So why do you then, because that person probably have one song that is popular in that field, you take it and give it to that person? The African person work is not being appreciated. I was expecting, if nothing at all, to see an album coming from an African descent being, even if not to win, being nominated. It's world music. It can't always come from East Asia and Europe, and those are the people that get it, like South America, Latinas, and they get it. Forgetting that they have their category too. They have the Latin category, and they still nominate them for world music. So at the end of the day, where is African man gonna fit his music? Platform is still not there. African Canadian Artists Union is a collection of basically all the African artists that are in Toronto, and I mean the underground artists that are not known yet, that are still trying to get their music out, that are still perfecting their craft and stuff. And what came about was we kind of had this idea, that is me and my management, we had this idea about doing certain changes to the whole African frame in terms of music. And so we kind of had the chance that since we weren't getting the representation that we needed to form a force. And the only way to do that is if we all came together as a team. So in order to present ourselves as a whole to the max of the people, because if let's say SlimFlex alone goes to champion something, I mean, yeah, it might carry some power, but how many fans do I really have to project that? But if we like 20 people and all of us are steering towards the same place, the power is more. So I spoke to a couple of the artists. Some of them came on board, some of them understood what we were doing, and then we just formed the union and did a couple of songs together. We're still hoping that things get better. You know, as I'm saying, keeping a group together is not easy, especially when it's a group of young artists. Everyone has their egos, everyone has their ways, and people feel they're not being respected the way they are. So sometimes, you know, there is that struggle here and there in the group, but still it is a group that is there, that we hope to grow it and take it to the next step with it. So the government and also our leaders, or people, our counselors and people that represent us, would see what we the African artists are also doing in our communities. Sometimes you just don't want to get too political, but then it's kind of frustrating as a young artist coming up, or as an artist coming up, trying to showcase where you come from, because we always say Canada is a multinational, multicultural country. So why do we then give some people the privilege to showcase themselves and the other people not a chance to do that? This is something that baffles my mind, and it's all because of how the system is being made. And like I said earlier on, even let's go to Junos. You know, we have all these categories being created, and the only one category that the African man could have been in there is being taken over by, because they said world music. So why can't we have, let's say, African music or African song of the year, or let's say Afrobeat song of the year, or Afrobeat album of the year? Why can't we create that? That only opens the net wider to catch as much as we can. So I think that got to change, and also the fact that I got to change myself totally to be accepted. I don't really understand that. I still haven't been able to find answers to, because you want me to accept you as you are. I've accepted to be with you as you are, but you said for you to be with me, you got to change yourself to be me. I mean, that's a contradiction, and that doesn't help the cause. It doesn't help nobody. It try to suppress us, that, like I said, like the visible minorities like us, you know, coming from Africa, people that really don't have much voices. Sometimes you can't dress up. You could dress up things, but sometimes it's better said when you do it in the raw state. So this is my true self. He got it done. He got it done, and he won't quit.
That was Felix, popularly known as SlimFlex. Check out his music on his official YouTube channel at official SlimFlex. That's SlimFlex. And before we leave, we'd like to extend our thanks to Felix and his team and VX3 Exchange Incorporated.
Impact is a production of VX3 Exchange, featuring the stories of extraordinary people, sharing their stories again and again at vx3exchange.com or our social platforms at VX3 Exchange.